Ladies and gentlemen, joining us in the Big Show studio today is a gentleman who sold over 175 million records as a co-founder of a band called the Eagles, and also as a solo artist. He's got 8 Grammys. He's had 25 top 40 hits, and of course, you can find him in Cleveland in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Please welcome Mr. Don Henley to the show. Whew, man, I'm out of breath already. It takes a long time to introduce you.
That wore me out.
Man, oh man, yeah,
It's time for a nap now.
I got to tell you right away, I think you're one of the greatest songwriters of our generation.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you.
And I know you get a lot of respect, but I still think you're undervalued.
Yeah, I'm sort of the Rodney Dangerfield.
He agrees. You know, I actually read every single bit of the lyrics to this new album, Cass County, before I listened to it.
Oh.
Because I'm an enormous fan of yours.
Thank you.
And I wanted to hear that as a story and as a poem before I heard the music. So it was really interesting to listen that way. I've never done that before.
I do that sometimes.
The words are amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you
You
very
did
much.
you did a gig with Billy Joel, and I guess you're Mutual Admiration Society, because he's also a pretty good songwriter.
I would say so, yeah. He's done all right.
And he mentioned the fact that he's unable to finish a song anymore, and you said, you got to get back to work or something of that sort.
Yeah. I think Billy will start writing again. You know, I think he just he's so talented on the piano that he got bored with pop music. Because of he has so much chops. You know, he can play classical and all that stuff. He's going to have to write at least one more song because he just had a new baby girl. You know, and he wrote one for his first daughter.
Right.
So he's going to have to write one for this one.
I got to be able to send her to college
Exactly.
too.
Talking to Don Henley about his new album called Cass County, which is in stores tomorrow. We should mention that. This is your first solo job in 15 years?
15 years, yeah. Well, I have this other job, that I do.
Yeah, I know about that other job. I heard about that other job.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing when you mention Don Henley, and in this day and age, everybody knows everything about their favorite singers or their famous stars or their favorite stars. But when it comes to you, you've been pretty private over the years.
Yeah, deliberately. I'm from a different generation. I'm not from this oversharing generation. I think one of the reasons, and we did that, and all the Eagles felt the same way. We did that in the Eagles to keep some sort of a mystique going, because if you put it all out there, there's nothing for people to wonder about. And I think that's why we've had such longevity, is because we haven't been in the spotlight that much. And I like to have a private life. I think everybody deserves a private life, and I live a very normal life in Dallas, Texas. I go to the supermarket, I go to the gas station, I go, get the car washed. I like to push the cart around in the supermarket late at night, because you haven't lived until you've heard Desperado coming over the Muzak while you're staring at the frozen peas.
Oh yeah.
I mentioned that whole privacy thing because when I watched the video of the history of the Eagles, and my career has kind of like gone right alongside of yours in a different way, but basically in the same business.
Nope.
And I knew very little about you, and I know pretty much about everybody in the music business until I watched that movie, The History of the Eagles. And man, I forgot some of the songs and some of the things that you went through over the years.
Yeah, we went through a lot.
I would imagine the same thing hit you when you watched it.
Yeah, it was. It
must have been hard to do because of that, right?
Yeah, it was a little bit difficult to watch all that stuff and to put it all out there, but it gave me perspective, on the career and how fortunate we are that we're all still, living, and that we all, still are able to tour and draw these huge crowds all over the world, and it gave me a new sense of appreciation for what we've accomplished, and it's quite extraordinary, really.
That song, Where I Am Now, kind of speaks to that a little bit. I loved reading that reading the words. Here I go again.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of, you came full circle and there's a sense of satisfaction. You're not looking back and saying, I wish I was back there.
No.
You like where you are.
I like where I am now. I'm a survivor.
Yeah.
I have 4 wonderful children and a wonderful wife and a great home life, and I've got the most important thing of all. I've got my health, and I've got great friends, and I'm still making music.
Wow.
I love making records, and I'm still going to make more records, I hope. And so life goes on, you know.
Take me back to when you were a kid growing up in East Texas, and you ran into Kenny Rogers long before you ever knew that you would be this successful. How did he help you? Well,
Kenny's an extraordinary guy, you know, amazingly generous and honest. It was back in the summer of 1968. I had a band, a rock and roll band in high school with my high school buddies. And we were in Dallas, Texas one summer, I believe it was 1968. And we were in a clothing boutique there. You know, the styles back then. We were in there buying bell-bottoms and Nehru jackets. And
get you a nice Nehru.
Yeah. And Kenny was in there because he was on tour with his group, The First Edition. You know, they were riding high at the time with that song called I Just Dropped In to See What Condition My Condition Was In.
Psychedelic song.
Yeah. And Kenny was in there, I think, primarily not for the clothing, but because there was a beautiful girl that was working in there. And I think he was, beginning a relationship with her. In fact, he did have a relationship with her. So one of the bolder kids in my band walked right up to him and said, you know, hi, I'm so-and-so, and we've got a little band here, and we're going to play in a club tonight here in Dallas. Would you come and hear us? And he went, yeah.
And you went, boy, that was easy.
Yeah. And because he happened to be looking for groups to produce at that time. You know, he wanted to become a producer. And so he came and heard us play, and I guess he liked what he heard. But he didn't have time to produce us immediately. We had to wait a couple of years. And then eventually we got the call, and he said, okay, I'm ready for you to come out to L.A. now. And we're going to do a single first, and then we're going to put it on an album, a label called Amos Records, which was run by Jimmy Bowen and Bruce, what was his name? Bruce Hensel. I can't think of his last name.
That comes out.
Yeah, but But anyway, we signed to that label, and that label also happened to be the home of a guy named Glenn Frey and J.D. Souther, who had also made an album for that label. So that's how I met them. And Kenny produced the album in the summer of 1970. It didn't do very much because, frankly, we were lousy songwriters. We hadn't developed as songwriters yet. And again, this is not the Eagles. This is my friends from high school in my small hometown. And so nothing happened with that, and we kicked around L.A. for about a year playing club gigs and stuff like that. And then finally, Glenn came up to me one night at the Troubadour Bar and said, would you like to go on the road with Linda Ronstadt? He said, I just broke up with J.D. We don't have our duo anymore, and we're leaving Amos Records. And I said, well, I'm still signed to Amos Records. And he said, well, you know, you'll have to figure that out.
Get the hell out of there.
And so Kenny, to his eternal credit, once David Geffen decided to sign me and Glenn and start, when we started the Eagles, Kenny got me out of my contract with that label.
Wow.
Got me out of my publishing deal. Ooh. Gave me everything back and said, here you go. So that just doesn't happen.
That's a lifetime thank you.
Yeah. So I owe him big time.
Has he ever complained about it since?
No, he's never said a bad word about it. Never said a bad word. Kenny gave me some good advice one time. He said, and somebody had given him this advice. He said, Don, you really better be nice to the people you meet on the way up because you're going to meet those same people on the way back down. And I never forgot that.
You also never went down, though.
Not yet.
You don't have much more time to go down.
Yeah, I think you're good.
You're pretty. No. I think you're around home here.
I'm not going down. I'm just going out.
We're talking to Don Henley about his new album, Cass County, which hits the stores tomorrow. First solo album in 15 years. The first single is Take a Picture of This. And one of the things we haven't mentioned yet is how many of your friends or, music... How many of your friends actually participated in the album with you? People like Dolly Parton, Merle Haggard, Mick Jagger, Miranda Lambert, and
Martina McBride.
One of my favorites, Alison Krauss.
Oh, yeah, she's wonderful.
So you just call them up and say, come on down to the studio? Is that how that works?
Well, kind of. Yeah, I mean, some of these people I knew already, and some of them I didn't know, but I've got a lot of nerve, so I'll call up anybody. And sometimes, I go through my management office who knows their manager. It's one of those my people call your people kind of things. And to my great surprise and delight, all of them said yes. I didn't get a no from anybody. Wow. And
You're a freaking eagle.
I'm
What do you expect?
I'm a lucky guy. Well, but
You're done,
still, but when you're calling up Mick Jagger,
Right, yeah. He's a Rolling Stone.
he's a and they were all very gracious and very generous. And the making of this album was a really enjoyable experience for me, primarily because of all the people who worked on it. And that's the icing on the cake when you call the singers in. Once you get the tracks recorded, and you call the singers in and they start putting those parts on there. That's the really fun part of making a record.
Singing harmonies with somebody is always a fun time.
Yeah.
Someone you haven't sung with before.
Yeah, and I sang with a lot. If you'll notice, there are a lot of women on this record.
Mostly.
Because most of my career I've been singing with dudes, and it was a real delight to be able to sing with females. And in my estimation, and I think a lot of people agree with me, there are not enough women in the country charts right now. It's a dude fest right now. So I'm hoping that maybe this album will help turn that around.
I should mention this, Don, and that is when I first heard about the project, it was described as a country album, but when I listen to it,
it's not really.
I don't hear that. I hear you really can't put a label on it. It's just great music.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I don't like to put things in boxes. There are some songs on there certainly that are pure country leaning, and there are some songs that could be described as Americana, this new category that they've come up with.
Right.
There's blues on there.
Yes, there are.
There's rock. Take a picture of this. It's kind of a rock song that I might have done in the 80s. It's something like I would have done back then. So I don't want to put it in any particular category. Buddy Rich, the famous jazz drummer, said there are two kinds of music: good and bad.
It simplifies it.
I'm happy to say this is good music. It's called Cass County. The album is out tomorrow, and it's absolutely incredible. Don Henley, thank you for coming by the radio station.
My pleasure to be with you. Thank you.